Welcome to this video. This is the first video in the series of parsing and producing JSON in a Groovy. After watching this video, you will understand how to convert JSON to Groovy object using JsonSlurper. First thing first, why you may need to convert JSON to Groovy object. Understanding Groovy is important as it is used in different API tools like JMeter, SoapUI and Kotlin. And while we using Groovy these API tools, chaining of the API often needs to extract data from the response of a previous request, manipulate it as per requirement, and send it in the next request as data. Manipulating this text data is hard, tedious, and error prone, and time consuming. But if we convert it to Groovy object, it becomes easy. And most of the modern web development frameworks rely on a JSON as a data type to send this data to client. So before going into the code, let's understand Groovy's love for a JSON. Groovy loves JSON. Groovy comes with integrated support for converting between the Groovy objects and JSON. Unlike traditional languages, Groovy don't need any third-party dependencies to convert JSON to the Groovy objects or Groovy object to the JSON. Groovy implicitly support that without any libraries, and all the codes to need this serialization deserializations can be found into the groovy.json package. Let's take an example of a Java. Uh, if we use, there are multiple libraries like a JSON or Jackson which are used for JSON serialization or deserialization in a Java, right? But it's not very straight ahead. We have to write and depend on the object mapper. We have to write an POJOs and then convert it. We have to take care of all the data type that we have in the particular response upon JSON that we are getting from a server and convert it as per our need. We have to be very diligent while we're doing this. So this is in one example where one is reading some file as a staff JSON and trying to convert into the object staff. Before he do that, he needs to understand what is this object. He needs to write down this POJO for that particular object, different data types, string, integers, array of a string, list, map, and then only they would able to use that particular Java object. But in Groovy we don't have to write this kind of a mapping, and we would be able to use uh, this Groovy without any mapping and create the Groovy objects. Okay, to do that, basically we gonna rely on JsonSlurper class from this groovy.json package, and this class basically does nothing but parses text or reader content into the Groovy data structure, and it uses GPath like an expression, and I'll come to that when I'll go to the code. I am using IntelliJ as an IDE of my choice, but you can use any IDE like Eclipse or NetBeans which supports the debugging. If you have low memory or RAM, you can even go and use the Groovy console, which is readily available for a download here. But with this you won't be able to do the debug, and you would be just able to run the code. This is also comes in handy, but it doesn't support any intelligence autocomplete or even don't manage any import. So if you want to use it, you have to make sure that all the imports are correct. Okay, let's go back to the R code. Let's take an example. Let me create one Groovy class. Now that we're gonna debug it, I'll try to write it down everything in a class. Let me create a class Slurper. Okay, let me write main method. Okay, main method is here. Let me take an example of some text. String text. Let me add some JSON to it. Let me add two keys. Message hello world. So this is one JSON. Let me go and add one more key. Suppose Joey is greeting someone. How would Joey greet? Joey would say, how are you doing? So let me add that. So we have a string with us. We don't need to use semicolon because we are using a Groovy. So let me create an object of a JsonSlurper. So you can definitely use the Groovy console which I shown earlier, but I rely on this ID because it supports autocorrects and these imports are managed out of the box. I don't have to worry about the class when I create the objects. This ID like IntelliJ, Eclipse or NetBeans, they take care of it. So there is a very less chance of an error if I use this kind of an object. So what I'll do, I now have text, I have created object, I'll try to pass this and store result or Groovy objects in this particular object variable called result. Let me print out the class of this object so that I'll understand what was the class. Okay, I know there are two keys and two values are there, so message and hello world. Let me see, let me see what is the object and then I'll go ahead and try to see if I can print those out of the box. So I have started executing, it's building. Let's wait. Okay, initialization has happened. Okay, so I got the return type as a class as a map. I'll add a debugger here to see, how the object structure is. But now that it's map, and as in any Java map, it would have a key set. So I'll go ahead and try to print the key set here as well. Okay, result object and key set, because result in object and not particular object upon creation of a map, so it won't support this key set out of the box until unless I declare it as an map. So what I'll do, if I know it was a map, so I can rely on a key set. But even if I declare it as an object, this should work because we know what we have seen earlier, that this is a map of, right? So this should work. So I'm debugging it because I wanted to verify a few things and then we will see how the results turns out. Building. Okay, you can see result is a map. It has two key values, message and win, and both are in the format of a string. Right, so let me go ahead and print it. Console, I see the map and I see the keys, right? Message and Joyce, both the keys, because I was printing a key set. Okay, now both the key set and values were a string. Let me take something and different of a type and see how Groovy manages to convert into the right data type. Because if we use a language like in Java, we have to worry and see how that particular object structure that particular JSON has, right? And then we need to make sure that we use the exactly same kind of an JSON. Like if staff has a name supposed to be of a type and string, age is integer, position should be an array, and like that. So we have seen this, so I'll change this particular JSON that I had earlier. I'll try to add some list. Let me call it my list. Where is my cursor? My list. Okay. I'll give the list of an array of an integer. 10, 19, 28, 29, 89. Okay, and I won't try to do this again. There is no point doing this again, but I know this is a list. So what I'll do, I know the result, I know the key. So I talked about earlier about this GPath, right? So GPath essentially is nothing but the way that you can travel through the hierarchy. If you have an XML, you generally have a node and you write the node like a structure and use that. If you want to do same thing, how GPath would able to, with a GPath we would able to do in a Groovy. So let's try to see that as well. Mm, So a lot of different URLs on the clipboard. So it says that okay, you need to get A, get B, and get C. So this is a POJO. This is a typical structure in Java beans. Here we have to provide. Okay, we can use map like notation, property notation, and direct notation, right? So so here they haven't given example. Let's not give an example. Let's try to see. Okay, so this is like a property that they have used, and we know that we have my list. So what I'll try to do, I'll try to print the my list. Mm, okay, my list, and let's see, what happens if we do that. Let me add a debug and see what kind of an object that we get in the result first, and then we will try to do this my list while actually evaluating that particular expression. So we have started. Okay, result, you can see it's in my list, and you can see this particular value is in the form of an array list because I have provided basically an array of an integer. So I don't have to worry about, creating some mapper file where I have to define the keys, values, data types. So Groovy does take care of it implicitly without any worry. So now I know that it's a result and I wanted to print it. I'll try to add it as a variable result, and I know the name of the key that I had. I'll try to see, and yeah, if I use my list, it looks like working. And if I'll try to go ahead and try to see what it prints, it should print the array that I had, and it has printed the array. Okay, we demonstrated two things: how implicitly Groovy does this data structure converter and take care of a mapping class, which we don't have to write, but we will go and see, if we choose some different string and add more data structure, how it works, right? So I have one particular string on my copy board. I'll go ahead and directly write it, use it here. I'll remove this particular string so that we can save some time. Okay, this is the string where we have different data types. As you can see, there is a number. We already have seen the example for string and array. Here we have number, fraction, exponential, null, and boolean type. I am trying to see, how it would work around. It will work out, if we can just print like this, and this particular keys, whether we get those values or data type, and we will see how does it looks. Okay, I thought I wrote it here boolean, but must be some copy paste issue. I'm here boolean, and let me debug it now. Let me see how this conversion is working out. Groovy is very flexible language. We don't have to. Okay, you can see the all data types here. Okay, okay, result, and you can see the simple is a type of an integer value, fraction is a type of an big decimal, exponential is a type of an big decimal. Okay, null is a type of an value null. Okay, and okay, the value is in boolean. That is what I wanted to show you, how it implicitly handles all the values and types, so we don't have to worry about anything. right? So these were two very simple example that we have seen. So let's create something, some example where we read the data from a file and see how it works. Okay, so I'll add this data in file. Go some JSON. Okay, example.json sounds good. Okay, make sure it's invalid JSON. Okay, I don't need this. Now it is in file. I'll try to read it as a file. Okay. I'll instead of creating an object of a file, I can create an object of a file. File input file. Let me set it input file file object. Let me get the path of this file. Copy the path. Is there option to copy the path? Okay, show in the Explorer. I'll open it away. Okay, it's opened on my machine. I'll just write down the path here in the file. Okay, a more block source, and I have to give the name of one file as well, example.json JSON file that we were reading. It won't make any difference even if we save it as a text, because anyway we are trying to convert into the object. So let me try do that for you. So I'm trying to save as a txt file, as I'm using the Windows machine. I'll say go and refactor. Okay, I missed the T again. Let me change it. City typos. Okay, all the data types. I have the file. I have created the object of file, and now I'll just go ahead and use input file dot text. So Groovy is very flexible. I don't even have to create this object as an input file. I can just use def as an variable created for it, and Groovy will take care of it. So I'll try to do the same thing which we were doing earlier. Had kept the data in the method itself. Now we are trying to read it from a text file. I'll run it and see if we are getting any error for this. Okay, it's running. Okay, we are getting error, no signature methods. Slurper file is applicable for type blocks Groovy so example type string possible session find Groovy closure. Okay, good to know this. Okay, we were getting some error. Okay, are you able to identify what we have missed? Let me run it again. Okay, so this using the smart IDs help us to figure out the issues. We know this there are typos, slurper, file. I was not creating an object of a file here, and that might be the reason. Let me see. I am read now. Now I am creating an object of a file, and you can see I'm able to read the file. Good. Hmm. Now that we are able to read the file, let's go and try to read this data instead of a file from an internet, right? I know there is a project called carbon intensity which we can rely on to, and this is what we were referring earlier, and there are different APIs available here. This is for UK, but anything should work for us. So we will try to use this particular API and see if we can just use Groovy to get this data with us without any fuss. Okay, so let me open my IDE. I am here instead of a file. Now I have to rely on an URL. So I'll write down some URL string JSON URL. What was URL that I had? Okay, this was the URL. I'll type down the URL here. Okay, now I have an URL. Let me create an object of an URL. URL Java.net. Yes, it's in Java.net. New. I missed new earlier, which was giving us an issue. So new URL and JSON URL as a parameter. We have an URL in JSON URL. Let us open it as a stream. Input stream as an, because URL would stream the data. URL stream object has declared. Let's define it as an without value as a null. Stream input stream null. Let me add this value to URL object that we have created. Open stream. Let me put into the buffer reader. New buffer reader, new input stream reader, and we have URL stream, right? Okay, here we supposed to write URL stream, isn't we? URL stream, and then we have here is a URL stream. So basically what we did, we hard coded the URL for an JSON. We created an object of an URL. We created an object of a stream. We opened the URL stream. Then we tried to save, create a buffer reader and try to assign the buffer reader the URL stream that we have opened. And now we have the JsonSlurper, and instead of this data, we can just pass the reader. And just try to print out, or we will print result object, but we will see what value that we got from the API and what value we are getting here, and how is it is taken care of. Groovy is taking care of this. We know this prompt to data intensity, a bit of a complex JSON that we have seen. Okay, we are getting error, buffer reader missing. What are we missing? Main Groovy missing language, no signature method of a parse text is applicable. So we are trying to parse. Okay, we have to use, so this is what I was talking about. We can even use input stream, we can use a reader, we can use byte. So far we were using a text. Now we can just try and parse and see how whether it works or not. Possible solutions: use a parse. Very helpful messages to solve the issue. And you can see the data has printed here. Okay, I thought it seems like I have executed it. I'll rerun it again in the debug mode, and we can see the object that we are getting here in the result and how it's been working. The result, you can see the data that we are getting. Keys, we got key as in data, and in values we got to and from, and intensity and key in value, forecast. So you can see this is composite JSON. In a JSON we have an array. In array we have again one JSON where we have 3 different key and values, and all those things are been taken care of in Groovy without any manual mapping needed. We can see it's being printed here. So that was it, taken care by the Groovy. So we have covered many things how this done. Just one thing here, as we were seeing this, that everything was well and good, we were able to do that, but sometimes there are some may not be valid JSON, which may not happen, but if happens, there is a workaround that you can get rid of that in a Groovy as well. We will see that as well. So I have created one very simple JSON, which is not the JSON because you can see I have added one comment, and it may if I try to use an as a standard JSON, it may fail and it may not get recognized as in JSON. I won't be able to use any kind of a mapper in Java to solve these issues, right? See the different formats of comments that I have added in the JSON. I use a pound or hash sign. Here we have typical um, forward slash with a star as a comment, and so basically not on JSON, but if we want to pass, Groovy is so flexible that it gives us a way to do this as well. What we have to do is, so we saw here that we are using parsing method, but even we create the object, if we set type as a JSON parse type, I guess JSON parse type, okay. And you can see there are some options available right here. So I can use it as a lags. So basically this is to relax the validation that we have on the JSONs, and we will see whether how it works. But I have read it somewhere that it does work. So I haven't tried that, but the idea is it should work. Even if it's not a JSON, we should be able to read it out and it should get parsed or converted into the Groovy object without any fuzz, even if it's not invalid as an standard JSON. So you can see I can see the author and book names and all the details that I have mentioned here without any issues, and Groovy was able to do that. So that's all folks. Go over through this video. Please share with your friends if you find meaningful. If you think something is not right, please let me know. I want to also learn from the exercise. I'll correct myself. I'll update the video if there is a need to. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Have a great day.